In this module, we're going to talk about the different types of grief. So in module 1, we talked about the causes of grief. A loss of a certain type causes of grief. Module 2 is talking about the different types of grief. The number one grief we're going to talk about is the complicated grief. The complicated grief is that you really don't understand, you don't come to terms with it. One day you might understand it, the next day you don't, and you're not moving forward to a resolution. You're not understanding the reason why. You're stuck in why me, why me, why me? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Right? And so when you are going through a complicated grief, the person might have very mixed feelings as to not understanding why this happened. And these complicated griefs create a lot of emotional turmoil. They create sadness, they create depression, they create anxiety. These people sometimes may say, I found it. I understand why I went through this loss, right? And they map out a plan that they're gonna go and target on this new way of seeing life. But the next day, they're back in ground zero and they're super depressed, not understanding the grief. And so a lot of people get lost in a very complicated grief because in order to heal a grief, you need to accept it. And sometimes there's no really understanding of it. It's just the acceptance, right? And so what happens when I've talked to people in a very complicated grief, that they're just stuck in the why me? Why did I live this? They just don't ever get to the next phase. They just don't ever get to the next joyous part of life. They're stuck. Being stuck creates people that are hurt, and hurt people hurt other people. And that creates voids, and usually voids of pain that cause depression, anxiety, a lot of sadness, and usually those voids have to get healed by something. And voids get filled with food, anger, alcohol, drugs, illicit crimes, etc. And so if you have somebody that's in a complicated grief, let's start by accepting that person isn't in a complicated grief, or I am in a complicated grief. In the next modules, we'll talk about how we get to the solution of those. The next type of grief is a prolonged grief. And so I have an aunt in my family. Her son was 24 years old when he passed away tragically. And it's been 20 years, and you could still see the sadness in my aunt's face. She still talks about him like it was yesterday. She has pictures of him all over the house, and I could not imagine losing a child, you know? And all my respect to people that are going in a prolonged grief. But prolonged griefs hold you back too, because you're in that state of mind for forever is to come of this loved one. I've met men that divorced 30 years ago and they're still in a prolonged grief, and they haven't been able to get out of their stuck ways. They never remarry. They never believed in love again. They probably go from one woman to another to another. That's because those kinds of men are going through prolonged griefs. And if somebody you know is in a situation of a prolonged grief, they need help. The widespread grief. Certain major events cause mass trauma and grief. Think of the September attacks. Think about COVID. COVID is a widespread grief. As society, as humanity, we have been hurting. It's going to be 3 years since COVID, and it still dwells on us. You know, there's people that have prolonged COVID. They call it long COVID. They're still going through the COVID symptoms. Till this day, science is unaware if it's real symptoms or if it's a mental state of mind symptoms of long COVID. And so when there's a widespread grief, it's almost like a situation where you understand it, you accepted it, but you're still in that mindset, in that state of mind where you're just mourning the loss forever and ever with no proper solution of what is to come in your life. And so in the next module, we're going to understand the stages of grief by Dr. Kubler-Ross. See you in the next module.